Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Why Are We Like This, a Heartstopper podcast. I'm Ashley, she, her.
And I'm Alyssa, she, they. And today we are here to revisit season 1 with two very special guests. First, we have professional homosexual and book dragon,
Avery, he, that.
Hi.
Hello.
And we also have librarian and co-host of the podcast, Gotham Outsiders.
TJ, he, him. Hi. I'm so excited to be here.
I am frankly so excited.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I love Heartstopper, and I was already following your podcast before Ashley and I got talking, and then I realized, oh my god, you're working on that podcast. So I was so excited when you asked me to come on. And then Avery's here. Avery and I are buddies, so this is going to be a fun time.
Yeah, TJ is actually how I found Heartstopper, so he gets credit.
Amazing.
I forgot
didn't even know that. Ashley was just like, oh, I'm thinking about having TJ on. And I was like, isn't TJ friends with Avery? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so then hear me out.
To be fair, Avery has got me into really good shows, like that Generation show that is no longer on HBO Max.
I haven't watched it.
It's like very similar to this very queer teen show. So I owe you for that, Avery.
Well, you got me to see the love of Cruel Intentions that I needed in my life, so it's give and take. It works.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We both have Heartstopper together.
Yeah. I think the first show Avery and I really bonded over was Skins, the UK teen drama.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you guys into that too?
Mm-mm. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I watched it like back when it was
back in the day. Like, I had to bring it up because it's so similar in terms of like teen drama. I mean, obviously very different, but the fact that Olivia Colman plays the mother of one of the iconic queer characters is I love it. Like, good for her.
She has a very similar talk with her daughter to kind of the Nick Nelson scene at the end, too.
Well, I don't remember any of that, so I'm going to have to go back and do a rewatch now.
Yeah.
My little lesbian heart was in love with them.
I never got into Skins. It was one of those shows that back in my cringy Tumblr days, it was like on my radar.
Fair.
Because I watched like Sherlock and Doctor Who, and so it was like, the UK TV bubble that it was in the Venn diagram, but I just never got into it. And, then it fell off my radar because I, went to college and had shit to do. But Olivia Colman is a draw for nearly anything for me, so I might have to check that out. We've started to touch on this already, but how did both of you come to Heartstopper, find Heartstopper, fall in love with it? Any of the above?
I'll go first since I know I'm Avery's origin story. So I guess chronologically I'll go first. I had a couple friends in like my little book reading library circle that were telling me, you have to read Heartstopper. It's a webcomic. It's so good. You'll love it. It's totally your vibe. And I was like, yeah. I'll get around to it. And then of course I never got around to it for like 2 years probably. And then I was at the annual Library Association convention, and I got an advanced reader copy of the US edition of the first volume. So I read it like right away because I was like, all right, it's in my hands. I have to do it. And I loved it. I went immediately to like the Tumblr page where Alice was posting the comic, and I binge read all of it. So I caught up right away. And then I've followed it like not week to week, but maybe like once a month I'll go and catch up. So I am currently caught up, and then the show was coming out, and I just knew it was going to be so good, and I stayed up at 3 a.m. and watched the whole thing with my friend, and yeah, it's just, since then, I'm like already was super into it, but the show just really put the nail in the coffin, and I would say maybe it's even better than the comic. I don't know if that's a hot take, but yeah, that's another conversation.
That is a conversation that I intend to get into. Maybe not in this episode, but that is a conversation worth having. Also, yes. I do just want to note, Avery, is the book that you held up the advanced reader's copy in question? I love that.
Yes, there it is.
Because how I found it was I was at that conference with TJ, and I go in to these events with no plan. I followed TJ's guidance because he's got like, we are going here, we are getting this. Like, I love it. And he has the best recommendations for me. And some of my favorite books have always been ones that he's just like, get in this line, you will love this. And I just go, okay. And he's been absolutely correct. So this was one of them. I picked up Heartstopper because of him, but I am really embarrassed to say how my part of this Heartstopper journey went, because we were at this conference a month before lockdown and the start of everything with the pandemic, and I needed something happy, and I was going through all my books from this conference. I read Heartstopper, and as you know, it ends on a very depressing note, which is not what I needed at that time. And for some reason, I did not. It literally says it on the book, but I did not realize there was more that I could access at that time. So I was very, very sad. And I kind of was like done with Heartstopper for a little bit because of that moment, because I did not need queer sadness. I could not even research to realize there was happiness immediately after. And so I had kind of moved on with my life until the show was introduced. Everyone was kind of hyping it up, and I was like, okay, I'll check this out. Obviously, immediately fell in love and watched it probably through 3 or 4 times in a week, and then went and reread the books when I could read multiple volumes, and went, I was wrong, and I admit this, and I am absolutely in love with this. And now I'm up to date on the books and eagerly awaiting everything with the show, because it was so beautifully handled on so many different aspects.
Yeah. Thank you for outing me as a serial color coding planner.
You know what? You know who says that's a good thing? Amber Benson loves that about you. Amber Benson says you need a friend who's a planner, and we met her a while back, and she said you need a friend like TJ, and Charisma Carpenter is her friend like that. So it's never a bad thing.
I love that.
So 8 minutes in before our first Buffy
came out.
Yeah.
That's amazing, though. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm just really glad that you both are caught up on the comics so that we don't have to like furtively disassociate when you're making predictions like we did with Eliza.
Yeah, like I'm caught up. I can't remember if I reread any of it before, but I have read all of it, and it's kind of blurred in my mind. Like, I know the show really expanded on the supporting characters, which I loved, and part of the reason why I revealed my hot take. But so much of the comic, like, is, it's a blur for me. They're the same in my mind.
I just finished a reread 2 weeks ago, so if you need help, I got you.
I want to do a reread so bad. I need a reason.
I recommend it. Plus, it's great because you can just reread it, like the webcomic on your phone, and just that's how I did it. It was like just anytime I was like needed to kill time and I didn't want to go on social media, webtoons.
It's a good idea.
So, what are your overall thoughts and feelings on season 1?
After re-binging it yesterday, and we said this recently, but so much love and joy. It feels soft, but it also handles so many dark things and a lot of things that like a lot of us have dealt with. And season 1 I think it has such a beautiful balance of these hard things that are definitely a part of our stories and like shouldn't be erased or pushed under the rug, but the focus on joy and my favorite image ever, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, which is the Tara Darcy kiss. And I think just that season, I want every teenager and like queer young person to have access to this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also binged it in preparation for this. I had watched it when it first came out, and then right after that with my husband, I forced him to watch it with me because I needed him to see how amazing it was. So this was my 3rd time watching, and I'm really glad I did since season 2 is coming out soon. And yeah, I love the books on the show. Obviously, I think it's really special in that it's so wholesome, but also so genuine with the various queer experiences. It has a huge success story, too, with it starting out as a webcomic. And I think that just is one reason why the why it feels so personal. And then the wins for the show just feel even bigger because of that like origin story, I think. And the fact that it's shamelessly queer. So when it's a win, like, yes, it's a win and it's big, but then it's like even bigger because it started out so personal and small. And I love that for it. And I love the show because it feels like Alice got to expand on the source material and really beef up the character arcs for the supporting cast. And then just seeing the characters embodied by the actors, like, I think they took the characters and really made them their own. But then in a way, I'm like, no, like, you are the character. So, like, they were just perfectly cast and added so much to the role and the lines. And I can't remember how much of the comics did this, but I love that the show sets up all of the stereotypical romance drama tropes, and then it does not follow through with any of them. So in a way, like, I love that it's not conforming to the genre in so many ways.
Yeah. Talking about the cast, it's almost like Alice like went into a lab and was like, okay, time to make Charlie, and out came Joe Locke, and like time to make Nick, and out came Kit Connor, like all of them. So well cast.
Yes, they are perfect. And like Nick, when we got like the first images, like I was like, oh, he's Charlie. And then Nick, I was like, Nick doesn't look exactly how I pictured. And then I watched the show and I was like, he's perfect. Like he is Nick Nelson. He was amazing.
Especially even with like the supporting roles, especially the adults, like all of the teachers, like Coach Singh, and just they're smaller characters in the comic, but the way they are portrayed in these brief scenes, I feel like they've done so well and really like pack a punch and have a huge influence on the story.
Yeah, and I think that does like play into as well, because like TJ was saying, they flesh out the like secondary and tertiary characters a lot more in the show, which makes sense for adapting something to TV. But like, in addition to that, the actors really, really bring an extra layer of like oomph to the characters. Because like, even like from the like 3 seconds of Jane Spring that we get, we hate her already.
We already know what vibe she's bringing.
I was like, wow, what a bitch line. And then she never comes back. She had no redeeming qualities yet. And I'm like, wow, they really set the tone with her.
It's true.
The coach is definitely a lesbian, right? Like,
yeah.
Okay. I'm like, girl, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
Gay people can play sports, darling.
Right. I was like, girl.
Yeah, she took that a little personally. She was like, excuse me, do I not exude lesbian to you, child?
And like, I can't imagine this. I'm like, having just watched the show again, I'm like, I can't imagine this story without the Tao L like love story unfolding as it did, and the Tara Darcy stuff, like, and of course, like the comics, you're very much in Charlie and Nick's point of view, which is great because it's very personal. But like we're saying, the show just adds so much, and I think it makes it much richer for different queer experiences.
I agree. Do you want to go through your favorite and least favorite moments from the season?
Sure. Avery, do you want to take turns? Like, do you want to say one and then I'll say one? Because I have a few.
Oh, yeah. That sounds great. You first. Let's kick this off with a bang.
So I like, there's a lot, but the ones that first come to my mind are like the ones that feel very personal to me. Like with the kiss scene, I'm sure that's one of everyone's favorite scenes. And like, it just feels like something plucked out of my life, which I'm sure many people feel that way. But I don't know, like I've been in that situation where you're like, oh, he's putting down some hints, I'm picking it up. And just that tension, it was just perfect. And yeah, just Charlie was so bold in that scene too, which I can't say I was that bold when I was in that situation. But that made it even better for me.
Yeah, he's so brave.
Yeah.
Gets me every time.
It's so good.
The look on Joe Locke's face, like, just...
yeah, like, you can tell he's so scared, but, like, he goes for it. And I'm like, oh, you're ballsy. I love that for you. What's one of your favorites, Avery?
For me, I sort of mentioned it, but I'll elaborate. The Tara Darcy kiss with the rainbow and Nick recognizing and having that moment, that meant absolutely everything for me. And I wish that scene was something I had as a 15-year-old. And at the time, I was looking for lesbian media everywhere and could barely find it. And it's so funny that, like, now as a grown adult, I'm very much having, like, the queer teen guy experience of living. And, like, that kind of connection between the two and really seeing that, I feel like so much, like, the queer guy experience and, like, the queer woman experience, they're very, like, separated. And I just feel like that moment of, like, recognition and just pure queer joy just makes me tear up every single time. And I'm legally obligated to stop what I'm doing if my roommate is watching that episode and I happened to be walking by her. Once I was literally asleep and I heard it and woke up and had to walk into the room and watch it and then went back to bed.
I love that.
That is one of my favorite stories ever.
I really like everything, like, obviously anything with Nick, his entire everything, but him and Imogen, I actually really like their scenes together. And I feel like she got a lot of hate online when the show premiered. And I'm like, no, like, she's actually really good. And, like, him kind of coming out to her softly and her picking it up, what he's putting down. Like, I just love that scene and that, like, little smile she gives them when they walk off together off the rugby field. Like, I just really like them. I love their scenes.
I think a lot of the hate she got has to do with the fact that she's not in the comic. And so she was like this conflict that got introduced. So she was kind of set up for the fandom that already was, you know, really into the books to hate her right away because of that. But she is very dear to my heart. I love Imogen.
Yes, I love her. I'm very protective of her. I was her to an extent. So, like, I mean, aren't we all? But weren't we all?
Right.
But yeah, I love Imogen. But I do also remember, like, early on being like, who the fuck is this bitch? And then by the time we get to the scene of her and Nick in the park, I'm like, oh, I love you.
Yeah. And, like, I get, like, I'm not homophobic. And they're like, thank you for your service. That's one of my favorite. Like, it's funny. And it's funny because she is a straight woman trying to be supportive. But it's like she's being genuine. Like,
yeah.
But is she?
You know,
I think she was.
I think, yeah. Like,
no,
I feel like she had never.
No, I am questioning the straight part.
oh, got you.
Sorry, no, I think she was being genuine.
I don't think she's not straight. Come on, there's no way in this show. No,
I don't think either.
The only straight person is Tao.
I know.
Right. I hope so. Oh my god, the only straight person is Tao.
But especially the scene of her meeting Nick in the park, it was like she does not look straight. She's walking right on up, and I'm like, that is a queer woman. The hair, the backpack, all of it.
The hair, yeah. And, like, you can see that
she's going to figure it out in college. It's just going to take her a little bit longer, but then she'll be able to reach out to Nick and Charlie, and it'll be great.
Yeah. Avery, I feel attacked.
she's relating to what Nick is saying in that scene, which I think is why... You know, I'm like, oh, like, it could be a queer thing. Like, anyone can feel different for whatever reason, but this is Heartstopper, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, Avery, I beg to differ. I don't think she's going to figure it out in college. I think she's going to figure out when she meets Sahar in Paris and the two of them fall in love.
Oh!
Correct.
Yes!
I take it back. You're so right.
Any other favorites, Avery?
Yeah, actually, I didn't realize this was one of my favorite scenes until I was rewatching yesterday, and this is a sad scene, so I will preface that. But the scene where Charlie is, like, breaking down with Tori and basically saying how he thinks he's, like, ruining everyone's lives and ruining Nick's life. And that, one, destroys me, but number two, like, just Tori in that scene and the acting, the look on her face and that, like, love and support, I've realized now that going forward, that is one of my favorite scenes. And now having read the comics and, like, seeing where Charlie's journey is going to go, how important her being there is. and I'm like tearing up thinking about it. So yeah, that is now one of my top scenes.
It's a great scene.
It's so good. And I do, Avery, I'm in like a very emotionally vulnerable place right now for like a variety of reasons, but I'm like tearing up just listening to you talk about that scene.
We all need a Tori.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, of course, this is like a basic one. Favorite moment. Nick coming out to his mom and just any scene with his mom. Like,
yes.
I know we already talked about Olivia Colman, but
there's never too much Olivia Colman. We can talk more about her.
It's so good.
So I have a question about scenes with Nick and his mom. The scene where after the movie theater, when he's explaining why he got in the fight, Olivia Colman, she already knows, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, she absolutely already knows.
She knows.
Thank you. I just needed confirmation that, like, she's known what's up from the beginning.
Right. Yes, she was definitely, like, trying to open that door in the car for him to, and he was, like, not ready.
I need you to know that as soon as you said, I have a question, I knew that's what you were going to ask, and I physically had to restrain myself from just immediately saying yes.
But you didn't even really get the full question out before everyone was nodding their head very like, yes.
Which is perfect on an audio medium.
Right. Any other favorites or least favorites you'd like to point out?
Well, I mean, least favorites, honestly, anything with Ben. His acting is great, but I am just in a full body cringe every time he is on screen. I can't handle it at all. Gosh. Also, honestly, favorite scene, anytime Darcy opens her mouth.
Yeah.
Just from when I think the first real interaction we see with her and Elle. And just, so I hear you have no friends. Like,
she's so good.
Yeah.
Anytime Nick hugs Charlie, I'm just like, it's a bear hug every time. And I'm like, oh, so good. Did we talk about the Pirate of the Caribbean scene yet?
No, we didn't.
Okay, that's like my last favorite part, I think.
Yes.
Like, so good. And immediately cutting to him Googling bisexuality. It's iconic.
So good. We spent a lot of time talking about that scene on our episode recording.
And now, did you ask us our least favorite too?
Yes.
What about you, Avery? What's your least favorite moment?
Well, I mentioned basically anything involving Ben. I can't handle it. And moments with Tao, like, there's just... and I know, like, I've listened to the podcast, so I know there are people here who agree with me. But he just... Am
I the only defender?
What was that?
Am I the only one who will defend him?
I don't hate him. He just has moments for me. Like, I do...
Fair.
I understand where he's coming from at many points, but the way he expresses certain things, the private chats about Charlie that Charlie's not involved in, like, I don't love him.
First time through the show, he definitely irritated me really bad. And then by this, like, third watch, I was like, you know what? I kind of see where he's coming from more now. And, like, I was like, yeah, like, he isn't, like, we're seeing all this stuff with Nick, and he isn't. So I get why he's so untrustworthy. And, like, his friends are horrible. So, like, I get it. You know? But then when he's like, Charlie, this is all your fault, and runs away, you know, like, I get the emotions were running high. But I was like, that was not fair to throw on him.
Yeah.
So I'm conflicted. But I'm a defender now after watch 3.
Yeah, that's why I'm very much like Ben. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Tao, I'm like, he's got moments, but I do still love him, and I love his love for Elle and her love for him. And so I do really think that, like, for that reason, I'm excited to see him grow.
Yeah.
Because he's growing. He's on a journey.
Yeah, but let's talk about Ben for a minute. Because I feel like there's moments we dislike, and then there's, like, the Ben plot, which is even worse. Like, I had watching this again, I'm like, he's horrible. The things he does are horrible. Like, you cannot excuse them. You cannot redeem what he is doing. And at the same time, like, I think it's such a well done character because society has made him hate himself and turned him into this horrible person. And it's like, he's so scared. So it's like, I feel bad for him, but he's horrible, you know, like, it's really well done.
And the fact that, like, to that point, Charlie felt like, oh, well, I'll take what I can get. And, like, he, like, justifies that Ben treats him that way. And I do think it's, like, something that, like, is, in a way, like, very relatable, but it's horrible to watch because we can see from the outside that, like, no one deserves this. And, like, Ben really needs to do a lot more work on himself before he should be in any situation. But it's really hard to watch that unfold, and I am very curious to see, since he's apparently going to be in season 2, how that's going to go.
Yeah, it's the thing that I have the biggest questions about. I'm like, why the fuck is Ben sticking around?
I really, really, really hope it's not to be a love story with Imogen, because I don't like that.
I don't think we've ever talked about that before, and that just made me physically ill.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of, like, little shots of them together in season 1, and I don't want it to turn romantic. I want her to realize he's a piece of shit and drop him, is what I want.
Yeah. No, what I want is, like, I want Imogen to have the, like, Elle Woods talking to Warner at the end of Legally Blonde moment. That I would accept that. I will allow that.
I want Ben and Harry to confess that they've been hooking up this whole time and they're both gay. And, you know, like, we're going to be like, you know what? You guys did shitty things and you were shitty, and you can go be in your own little corner and be gay together, but go away.
Listen, the world needs shitty gays too.
Exactly.
We can't all be great people.
Have you guys seen, like, older gay men complaining about how this show is so soft? And, like, I don't know, I feel like there's, like, this stereotypical, like, oh, we're just getting soft gay stories now. And I'm like, no, we're not. Just because this one's really popular right now, like, we have all sorts of different stories coming out. And even in this show, it's like, we have shitty gays in this show. Like, they're not all perfect little beings. Like, I don't know, I really hate that argument, and I feel like it comes from, I don't know, a certain older crowd, maybe.
I totally agree. And I think from, like, the time we were teenagers, I was able to find a few, like, soft, like, queer girl love stories. But when it came to, like, anything with gay guys, it was either, like, eating out and, like, very raunchy sex comedy, or it was super depressing and really sad. And just, like, either way, it almost always ended in death. And I feel like it wasn't until, like, Love, Simon, really, that I was like, oh, queer teen guys can also just have love stories, and it doesn't have to be primarily, like, more focused on sex.
It's funny you bring up Love, Simon, because Slayerfest did a Heartstopper, like, Patreon episode, because I wouldn't shut the fuck up about it, and was like, Ian, do it. And he asked me, like, why did I think that Heartstopper got such a warm welcome when Love, Simon got such, like, hate online? And I was like, I don't know if it just, like, the world wasn't ready for it, or, like, and then I had to also be like, well, also, it's not all sunshine and rainbows online about Heartstopper either, but the overwhelming majority is positive. So I don't know. What do y'all think about that?
Not for nothing. I mean, if we're just talking about Love, Simon, as a piece of media, the Heartstopper TV show is a better piece of media than the film Love, Simon. So there's that.
My thing is that Becky Albertalli received so much hate for being a woman writing a queer man story. You know, obviously she came out later on, but, like, when the film came out, I remembered just there was so much talk online about how, like, well, this isn't really genuine. And then people were saying, like, well, the director is a gay man, and so that makes it more genuine. So the movie's better than the book. And I'm like, so I just feel like I want to put this in conversation with Heartstopper, because I do think, as Ashley, I think you were probably hinting at, like, there is drama in the Heartstopper world. And I think part of that is Alice getting criticism for portraying queer men and their love story. And so anyway, I feel like that was maybe a little bit more a conversation we hadn't started to have when Love, Simon came out. And now we are having that conversation, but we're still seeing people be toxic about it.
Do not get me started on the internet discourse about Heartstopper.
Yeah.
That will stay in my private texts to Ashley, where we just kind of angrily shout at each other about the state of the internet.
I was going to say, that might be you'll just see that Avery has left the chat.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'll say with Love, Simon, there are things I really love about Love, Simon, and at the time it was a really big moment for me to watch. Just like seeing Heartstopper was a huge moment for me, but now I have seen it quite a few times, and I absolutely have critiques on it, and there are quite a few things that could have been better expressed. There's a lot of those I'm not like the other gays because I like present more traditionally masculine and things like that. Where honestly, I want Heartstopper. I want Love, Simon again, but instead of focus on Simon, I want Ethan's story. I want the the flamboyantly gay out person who's been dealing with shit the whole time.
I think we're having a similar issue, what we saw with Kit Connor, and like obviously they had said at one point like, oh, the entire cast is queer, like we wanted to be genuine, but because people didn't want to label themselves, and especially because he was more mask presenting, like I think we're still seeing shades of that in Heartstopper fandom discourse.
For sure, 100%. Do we want to go through the season 1 episodes and do your Heartstopometer ratings?
Just as a reminder, it is a 1 to 5 scale. However, you are welcome to exceed that however much you see fit.
In either direction.
Yeah.
I do binge it as a complete movie every single time, so I might need to be reminded what episode is which section. But yes, I'm ready for this.
I took notes, but apparently I listened to your other Rewind episode before this after I had already taken my notes and judged them, and I'm like, oh, my answers are really boring. Because I spoiler alert, I gave every episode 5 out of 5, but I have reasons. So I'm like, okay, I don't know. Just I'm easier to impress, I think. I don't know. I'm like, I'm at 0 out of 5, and then they're like, hi, and I'm like, all right, 5 out of 5. Like, they got me.
We do.
Literally.
Okay, so let's start with Neat. I want to hear your reasons for each episode, even though we already know your ratings. So let's hear your reasons, and then Avery, you can tell us what you rated the first one.
Okay, so let me go to episode 1. Yeah, I gave it 5 out of 5, and as I just said, like, because I knew you were going to ask me this question when watching, so I'm like, all right, what moments are going to make my heart stop? And literally, the montage of them going, hi, like, that whole segment was just butterflies for me, and I was like, all right, it's already 5 out of 5. Like, that did it. Like,
I love it.
I don't know, that just did it. It's perfect.
I love that.
That is entirely fair.
Thank you.
It is also a 5 out of 5 for me. I think it just so quickly tells you exactly who everyone is. And as I know is a huge part of this show, the soundtrack, the music just starting off, I'm sold and I'm ready to go on this journey every time. It gets you so hyped up.
Yeah.
And of course, the high montage. You're in love with them from those first few moments, and 5 out of 5 every time.
Like, you can tell Nick is so smitten watching for a second or third or however many time. Like,
100th.
Just so cute.
Okay, so episode 2 is Crush. So that's the one where they go to each other's houses. And it ends with Nick Googling, am I gay?
5 out of 5. Literally, when he's like, because there's like that moment where he's not saying anything, and then he's like, you want to come over to my house? And I was like, oh my God, heart's going, like 5 out of 5. And then you actually see them go to the house, and the hug at the end is probably the first hug that I think of when I'm like, oh, a Nick Bear hug. It was so cute.
Yeah.
Yes, 5 out of 5 because the snow scene Just again, just so like gentle and lovely, and it's just one of those like they don't see they're falling in love, but we just see like they just genuinely enjoy like these beautiful little moments, and yes.
And we meet Nellie. Like
we do meet Nellie.
Yes,
love
Nellie.
Nellie is enough. Just Nellie alone, heart.
Right?
Yeah.
5 out of 5.
Okay, I think I know the answers for the third one, but the third one is Kiss. So that's Harry's birthday party, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the kiss, and just okay, I could go on and on about the kiss scene, and obviously 5 out of 5. But I love this episode because it's called Kiss, and like we know they're going to a party, but then there's so many fake outs throughout the episode of like they're like, oh, maybe it's gonna be Imogen and Nick, maybe it's gonna be Tao and Elle, and then we have a Tara Darcy kiss for real. So we're like the whole time. Again, I mentioned the show not conforming to like a typical drama in the genre because like you would think they weren't going to kiss now, and like some drama is going to happen that's going to make it not be them. It's going to be a side character. The title is a trick, and it's like no, like they're really kissing. Like it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a big heart stopper and a big heartbreaker for me. Because just those last few minutes, even though I know it's gonna get happier very soon, it destroys me every single time. Like when Charlie is being like comforted by his dad at the end, and even before the party, like his dad is like scared for him to go in there. Like it's such a balance of like we have all of the gorgeous kisses, but we also have like Charlie like kind of standing up to Ben, and yes, 5 out of 5 heartbreaker as well as heartstopper.
I agree. Yeah, that scene with his dad, the crying at the end, like,
yeah.
First of all, that's another one where I'm like, okay, it feels like it was ripped out of my life, but not in a good way. Yeah, that's probably, when I think of like moment, that was my least favorite in the show in terms of enjoyment. It's probably that one, even though it's very genuine to me.
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
Yeah, it's sad.
Okay, then episode 4 is Secret, and so that's going to be the like rugby match at St. John's.
This is the only episode that I forgot to put a rating on it, and I think, is this your guys' least favorite?
It is.
Okay,
Yeah.
I heard that in your other episode, and I was like, you know what? I agree. It's like a weird middle episode where not much was really happening. Like, you get that really good rain. That's the rain scene, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was a heart stopper. So, like, that scene is 5 out of 5 for me. But then the rest of the episode is more like a 4 out of 5, if I'm being generous, I guess. So,
yeah.
I'll give it like 4.
That tone of voice doesn't sound like a 4 out of 5. That sounds like a 2 out of 5.
So I'll give it a 4 out of 5 total.
Okay.
To mix it up.
Yes, the kiss in the rain alone with freaking What's It Gonna Be in the background, which is one of my favorite songs already before this show. That alone, that scene, 5 out of 5. The rest of the episode, honestly, I'd kind of give a 3.
Yeah.
Just the rest of what's going on. It's like we want to get the information out for the rest of the story, but it doesn't hit me in quite the same way.
There's just a lot of rugby.
And like ending on the Imogen note, like I get, this is the part where it's like, oh, we hate her because like she's the obstacle in the way, and it just felt unnecessary. But then the show knows that because they don't really play into that plot much afterward. But
yeah, it's like wrapped up by the end of the next episode.
Exactly.
Which is how it should be.
Right.
Like, it's a quick thing. I get really annoyed when shows drag on like unnecessary B-plot conflicts for episodes and episodes. But that is one of the few good things about it being 8 25-minute episodes as opposed to being like a full order. There's less filler time.
Yeah. Okay, so episode 5 is Friend. So that is the bowling birthday party.
So I gave this a 5 out of 5. Looking back, I'm like, it's because of the arcade scene. Like, you know, it's so good. I'm sure we all think of that scene when we think of this episode. realistically, it's probably a little lower overall, but like I just need to mention the scene with her dog died. And it's like, what? It's one of my favorite parts of the whole show, I think.
Olivia Colman's face is like perfect.
Yeah. Do you like her? Well, her dog died, and it's like, it's just so funny.
It's a line that I recite like along with the show every time. I don't do that a lot. But it's really funny because Eddie will be like elsewhere in the room listening to something, and he thinks that I'm talking to him, and he's like, huh? And I'm like, oh no, I was just, her dog died.
I think this episode I'd give a 4 because again the arcade scene great, the conclusion of like the Imogen situation and the talk in the park. I thought Nick's like speech with that is in the same episode, right? Or is that the beginning of it?
Yeah, that's the end of this episode. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just checking. But I think for that reason, because I really love that talk between the two of them and that kind of like them relating with that feeling of otherness. But what brings the score down for me is the Tao confrontation in the bowling alley bathroom.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like, again, it's like I understand you're trying to be protective, but like I feel like you are also crossing some lines with a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in his defense, like, he overheard that Imogen and Nick were going to go out. You know what I mean? So I'm like, it's the perfect storm. Anyway.
Yeah.
I do get why people are like empathetic towards Tao in that scene, but for me, it's the like aggressiveness and like the way he approaches it and not trusting his friend. Like when he says like, no, it's not like that.
Right. I think he's like too protective and like he's trying to be a good friend, but you know.
Yeah, like even after that scene when Charlie, like, obviously Tao doesn't know what's going on between Charlie and Nick, but when Charlie is really like, I'm aware of what's happening, like, we're good, and you kind of think it's resolved, Tao still, like, confronts Nick and, like, is very much, like...
After saying that he would try. After saying that he would try to give him a chance.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so you just lied to your best friend and also were being a dick to Nick. Minus 2 points.
Like, if Nick were terrible, I would understand, but I am just... Since I love Nick so much, and we are seeing what Tao's not seeing, it does still hurt me.
Yeah. Maybe, though, he did make it the entire second game before he said anything. Maybe that was him trying.
That's true, yeah.
Okay, episode 6 is Girls. So this is the concert and the milkshake date.
5 out of 5. Because just the milkshake banter when they go up to get refills, like, is so cute. And so sometimes the lines, I'm like, this could be a little hokey or not feel natural, but the delivery is so good that I'm like, I believe it. I'm like, yeah, people talk like this, sure. And just Nick coming out to people, like, I think this is the one where he comes out to Tara, and like I love that she gave him the opening to do that because she knew he needed a positive experience. Like, just she is a saint, and I love her.
And I love their friendship a lot.
Yes.
Like, those two together mean a lot to me.
I agree.
I'm so glad you said that, because that is actually one of my notes, is like supportive Tara being supportive Tara. Because I do really love like the two of them talking, especially while Tara is dealing with her own like public coming out and being very aware of Nick's experience and trying to like be helpful in some way. But her face, just as he comes out in any way, is just so like she just has this lovely like, go on, you're right there kind of face. And for that reason, I love the episode. But we do see a lot of like what Tara is facing with like the homophobia in her school, which is very hard to watch, and seeing her really grapple with that. And I thought it was quite well done, but it is a mix of heartstopper, heartbreaker for me.
Yeah.
Speaking of the stuff with Tara, she's like totally the mom friend of the group, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when as you were describing her face, I was like proud mom, and then I was like, wait, mom friend Tara? I am the mom friend of my friend group too, so I was like,
episode 7 is Bully. So that is the movie date and the fight with Harry.
So obviously I gave it 5 out of 5. But looking back, I'm like, I think I misunderstood the scale. I interpreted the scale differently than some people. So like for me, what did it was the hand holding in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so cute. Like, of course there's a lot of angst going on around that, but just that scene is so good. And then of course we talked about the scene with Nick and his mom in the car. Like, there's just some really good stuff in there.
Which is why it's not our least favorite episode.
Absolutely not. I would say, it's a mix of a heart stop and a heartbreak for me, but I would maybe give it a 3.5 or a 4. Mostly the higher side is because of the scene with Nick and his mom in the car.
Yeah.
And him talking about like the word and just that like, okay, we know fighting is wrong, but we understand why this happened. And it does feel like him even saying that much is a step closer to being open with his mom at a very big moment.
Yeah, I would agree. It has a lot of good stuff. Like we get the char scene where he lets that slip, we get the gay nerd scene on the escalator. Like there's a lot of good mixed in. It's just like wrapped up in heartbreak.
I will say all of the heartbreak is so well done though. It hurts so good.
It really is.
The scene with Ben in the parking lot, like Ben sucks in every scene, but in this one particularly, it's like he's going out of his way to be cruel, and it's just like, and again, it's because he's scared and he doesn't want Charlie to out him to anyone, so he's trying to make it feel like, that he has nothing over him. But yeah, that scene in particular for me, I'm like, oh, that's the worst.
But it's also so beautifully shot, like the lighting with like the red backlight, like it's
and the scoring over. It's just so good. It's that is one that for me hurts so good because it like destroys me in my soul. But as a like ex-film student, I'm just like, this is beautifully constructed.
Yeah. All right, and then the finale, Boyfriend, which obviously is like sports day and the beach.
I'm gonna shock everyone.
What did you rate this one, TJ? I'm really curious to hear.
I know, it's just gonna shock you all. I gave it 5 out of 5. For the rugby scene, obviously, when he just walks straight to Charlie and takes his hands, like, heart was stopping in that moment. And then the confession and the beach scenes, just, that was some heart-stopping stuff there.
Yeah.
Agreed. I am also in the 5 out of 5 boat on that one.
Yay.
It had so many powerful moments, the ones that TJ mentioned, and also even like Charlie having that interaction with Ben and kind of like Ben no longer having any hold over him there. And also I really love the art teacher so much. So especially the moment at the end where like Nick and Charlie walk away and they're like, are you gonna make them come back? And he's just like, no.
Yeah, I'm good.
And like I didn't put this in my favorite lines, but on the beach when Charlie says, I never thought this would happen to me, and Nick says, me neither. Like, again, it could be corny, but I'm like, it's so genuine. Like, I feel like everyone really does feel like that when they're a teenager. So it really hit me. I was like, oh.
Yeah. So sweet.
I hadn't thought about that scene that way before, but you just gave me a whole bunch of thoughts, and I'm gonna just quickly crawl under my desk and cry for a few minutes if you'll excuse me. I just was thinking about how, like, because he's, like, only just figuring out his bisexuality, like, there's an added layer of, like, this, like, disconnect that he's only finally coming to feel, and it makes sense that he would feel like this would never happen because he's just figuring his shit out, and for it to be this amazing thing. I'm having emotions.
It's so good.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the music, but do you want to give us your thoughts and feelings on the music, and also if you have any favorite songs from the soundtrack?
Both in or out of context of the show is totally fine.
Yeah.
I mean, every single song in the show is really, really good. But the one that I listen to the most would be Alaska by Maggie Rogers, which is the song that plays when they're running down or running through the party to go find the room where they're going to kiss in. But just like that, such a joyous moment when they're just running through the hallway. And like, it feels like anything is possible. And I feel like that song playing is perfect for that moment. And it's just a really good song. So I listen to it all the time.
So many freaking songs that I either already knew the artist or now have new context or just completely fell in love with. I didn't know Baby Queen. Now I love everything. Buzzkill, My Own Person, as well as Sappho is another one I really love. But as I mentioned earlier, what's it gonna be? I remember when I was like looking for queer music videos a long time ago, I had found the music video for that, which if you haven't seen it is basically a teen queer rom-com, and it's very tropey, and it's like the nerd befriends the cheerleader to like get them to date their friend, and I have such love for that song, so then seeing it in the context of this show and such a beautiful scene just really made me love it so much more. I have to smile when I hear that song.
I love that. I'm definitely gonna have to look up the video. Any other thoughts on the music?
I couldn't name any other song besides Sappho. Sappho was my other one, and I'm like, I know Avery's gonna look that one. I just knew it. But literally every song that comes on, I'm like, this is so good. Like I added the whole Heartstopper just soundtrack playlist to my Spotify and just put it on here and there. But Alaska's the one I go back to.
Yeah. And we're getting more Maggie Rogers in season 2 because we got that first 2 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a single song on that like Heartstopper playlist that I don't like.
Yeah.
Like maybe once in a while there's one or two I'll skip because I'm not feeling it, but generally there's nothing that I like hide from the playlist.
Oh, there's stuff that I do, and it's entirely the show's fault.
Yeah, there's like a couple that I won't listen to just because they make me so sad.
Oh.
Like Our Window.
Yep.
Skip. No, thank you. It hurts me.
That's the one I was going to say.
Yeah.
The vibe it gives the show, and it feels very modern. Like, it's just perfect.
Yeah, I can't wait for the season 2 mixtape. It's going to be so good.
So, this one might be a harder question. But do you have any favorite quotes from this show?
I wrote down a few. I might have mentioned a couple, but I like a good funny line. So I love the little scene with the 2 students walking into school, and they're like, anyone could be a lesbian. Maybe you're a lesbian and don't know it. Like, it's a really fun line. Her dog died is good. And then I'm not homophobic. Thank you for your service. And we are such meddling gays. Those are my favorite.
Nice.
Thank you.
I always forget about We Are Such Meddling Gays because it's like a text.
Yeah.
And it's not said aloud, but that's a good one. I also, too, I feel like my thing with meddling gays is it gets overused in fan fiction to a point where I kind of roll my eyes at it now. That life has left Ashley's eyes, for those of you listening. And I don't read nearly as much fan fiction as you, Ashley. And it just, to me, I'm like, oh God, why does every time they have to use this phrase? But also, I was that teenage fan fiction writer, so like I get it, but also I don't like it.
Avery, what are some of your favorite quotes from the show?
So the 2 I can think of off the top of my head that get me every time is one coach saying lots of gay people are good at sports, Charlie. And also when Nick comes out to his mom and he's like, do you know what bisexual is? And she's like, yeah, I wasn't born in the 1800s. Like, I felt that.
It's called bisexuality, if you've heard of that.
It's this newfangled thing.
Avery, let me ask you this. Which coming out scene do you like better between Olivia Colman's Queer Moms and Skins or this?
Okay, well, the thing is, I will say I think there's a lot more joy to be had with the Heartstopper coming out than the Naomi Skins one, because I love it, but Naomi was very horrible to Emily through a lot of that, and there was so much drama mixed in before Naomi, was able to come out, but the scene of Olivia Colman basically just those same gorgeous eyes that she does in Heartstopper, bearing into her child's soul and just kind of being like, do what makes you happy. I will have to say, overall, Heartstopper, it hits me a little harder, but Naomi will always be a part of who I am as a person.
No, I feel that. I can't pick because I think Olivia Colman has better lines in the Skins scene where she's like, when you find something, you have to cherish it. Like, I don't know, it's just very iconic to me. But then Heartstopper is much simpler. Skins is always much higher drama, I think, than any other show. So I guess that tracks. But yeah, Heartstopper feels more genuine, I think.
There's something to be said about the immediate shift to he still can't come to Monarcha.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It feels very real, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick being like, Mom, I thought you loved me.
I do have a question. I'm going to go off script for a second here, Ashley.
Okay.
Because you are both also bookish humans. And we have criminally not talked about Isaac at all. So
yeah, how did we make it this far?
I have here the article that I got my comprehensive list of all of everything Isaac reads. And I've just sent that in the chat. And I just want to know, that's just for reference, I want to know if you have any thoughts or feelings or anything you want to say about any of Isaac's reading selections throughout the series.
Oh, I love this. Let me look at it.
And also, do you have any book recommendations for Isaac?
Ooh,
that's a good question.
Just came up with it. Thank you.
That was impressive.
I'm like horrified that we haven't brought Isaac up yet because I truly love Isaac so much. And actually, we'll go back to the quotes thing for just a second. Isaac's delivery of I want to believe in romance.
It's great.
I love him so much. But I was so excited when I was listening to your episode and you talked about how he's always reading like the 17th book in a series that's 1,000 pages. And I don't think I've read a lot of these, but I feel like I absolutely do want to work my way through the list now. Except I have indeed read Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, we talked about that being a comfort read for Isaac.
Yeah, as it should be. Absolutely. He wants to believe in romance.
Jane Austen's the way to do that, yeah.
Yeah, I love him. I think he should have been invited on the milkshake date. The fact that he wasn't there, I was like, where is he? He's the only one in the friend group and not there. Like, come on. Justice for that.
I do think he would have turned it down, but an invite would have been nice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, choosing to believe that they did invite him and he just did the math when he found out who all was going and was like, oh, I see what you're trying to do here. I'm sick.
Yeah, that tracks.
We do have textual evidence that he's done that at least once. So
right. No, that makes sense.
Choosing to believe that that's the case this time.
So it looks like he read a Dune book. I've never read Dune, and
Me neither.
thought the movie was boring. I'm sorry to say.
I think that the movie, because it's a part one, my thoughts on the Dune movie are going to be entirely like contingent upon the events of the second part. But yeah, it was nice to look at Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya for a while, though.
I agree. I totally agree. He did a Naruto book, a manga. I read some of those back in the day. I don't know Proud. I'm just looking through the list. Pride and Prejudice, of course, I know. I've never read it. He has Radio Silence by Alice Osman. That's a good one. Actually, that's like her only book I haven't read.
It's also the only one I haven't read, so
me too.
fair. They just announced the new hardcover edition, so
we need to do like a little book club or something.
That is in the works.
Yeah, so no, I haven't read any of these, but it looks like Isaac is really into like classic literature and maybe things that are more like memoir, nonfiction, or higher literature. Like, so I would probably recommend some like queer memoirs that I really liked, like Elliot Page's was really good, or Colton Haynes. Those are two of my favorites from recent. So that's what I would recommend to Isaac. And like, if he likes Dune, like there's other fantasies that are well regarded that I would recommend that I cannot think of off the top of my head. But I would look in that genre for him.
Yeah, I would say the two books that just top of my head, I don't know too much about Dune, but just thinking like queer inclusive sci-fi, a book that I read when I very first met TJ, Long Way to a Small and Angry Planet, I feel like Isaac would very much enjoy.
Yes.
And that series, and that is it's a shorter world, but it is, I think, like 5 books. So I think he would have a good time with that. And I do think he would probably enjoy Light from Uncommon Stars as well.
Yeah. Okay, I thought of a fantasy. It's called Priori of the Orange Tree.
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a big, thick one, so I feel like that might be his vibe. And it's very queer. But yeah, but if anyone needs queer book recommendations, hit me up. That's my specialty.
Yes. As one of the recipients of TJ's amazing recommendations, I can, recommend, endorse the books that TJ Taylor.
That was a great question.
Thank you. So now looking ahead, and since you've both read the comics, I'm really excited for your thoughts on this. What are you looking forward to in season 2?
So the Paris trip is probably my favorite part of the comics so far. I just feel like it was really fun, and I love like school field trip episodes. I think that's going to be really fun. And I hope they incorporate the teacher romance that unfolds in Paris and beyond. And there's just some really good stuff with Nick coming up, with his family drama, with like his brother possibly. And I really want to see Nick talking to his rugby friends about coming out, because I felt like we almost got it at the end of season 1. So I feel like we need it really early in season 2. And that's something I really want.
Indeed. I think the Paris trip I'm very excited for. I'm very excited for like the birthday party and like kids in the hotel. And also the teacher romance is one of my favorite things. And because I already love one of the teachers, and the other actor I saw in one of the sneak peeks, he looks adorable. I'm really excited to see how much they incorporate them, because they've been expanding on those characters, and Coach Singh as well, because I believe it's volume 2 where she kind of relates with Nick and Charlie about queerness and being queer in sports, because I think she found her wife through rugby. So I would love to see more of that. And then, of course, going forward, there is a lot of sadness and trauma I'm not ready for, but I do trust them to balance and hold me while I cry.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
More Isaac. I really want more Isaac. And Tao and Elle need to hook up like real soon.
We do know Alice did confirm that they are going to expand on Isaac's story. So
Yay! He was so good. Just he had the bare minimum of screen time, and he ate it up every single moment.
Yeah,
so good. I also love. Speaking of like Isaac as a 10th wheel, 6th wheel. I'm like, I'm doing math wrong. I have an English teacher. I don't math. As a 7th wheel, as a 7th wheel on the poster for season 2 that they released, where you've got Tal and Elle paired up, Tara and Darcy paired up, Nick and Charlie paired up, and then Isaac in a book. and then we also have the still of Isaac in Shakespeare and Company, just living his best life with
like a huge stack of books. It's like, yes.
Because God knows that's probably the first time Isaac's been like unsupervised in a bookstore.
Yeah.
And they meant he is asexual, right? Or possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm assuming we'll get some sort of plot line with that, even if it's just like
entirely what Alice has teased is like we're going to get more about Isaac and his asexuality, and very excited for that.
And Loveless was so good, so like Alice is going to do a great job.
I love Loveless. That was the end of our questions. Do you all have any other like thoughts, feelings, comments, concerns?
Anything you want to talk about that we haven't talked about yet?
I think my only thing, and I guess this could tie into like what I want to see in season 2, is that I feel like, and I could be wrong, like I'm in the Heartstopper fandom, but probably not as deep as you guys. Like, I feel like the favoritism towards Nick is very greater than Charlie overall. Okay, so I'm not just making this up. So I feel like part of that is that like Nick's plotline in season 1 was so powerful and so well done. And that's not to say Charlie didn't have a good character arc, because I do think it was important to see him, getting over the trauma that Ben caused him by the end. But I feel like, and I know it's coming, but I feel like Charlie really needs a plotline to make him be the front runner and, go through something really powerful and important. And because Charlie was the point of view character in the beginning, but then it kind of became Nick's story, it felt like. So I really want to see Charlie get the spotlight in season 2, probably. And then they can be more equals going forward.
Yeah, that is really frustrating, like online, when people will just straight up be like, no, Nick is the main character. Like, he is the lead character. And I'm like, no.
No, they're co-lead. And it's like Charlie was the self-insert character at the beginning. So it's like, no, if you're going to, make a debate, I would say Charlie.
That's also going to get into some of my frustrations with internet discourse, though. This whole main character bullshit that I'm very done
equal
with. Yeah. Like, even the fucking, like, the production team, like, put them up for for lead actor against each other for nominations. It's like they're co-leads.
That's amazing. I didn't even realize that. Yeah, because I'm like, when you have like a male lead, female lead, they both get nominated in separate categories. But when you have a gay show, it's like they're competing against each other.
Yeah, they both. For the Emmy, for the Children's and Family Emmy, they had both up and kids still won.
Right.
So like,
and I get it because his scenes were more. I don't want to say more impactful or more important, but I just feel like there was something really powerful about them, and Charlie needs that going forward. Yeah, when we get the mental health stuff coming up, I feel like that'll be his time to shine. What about you, Avery? Anything we didn't touch on?
Yeah, I would say, I touched on this a little earlier, but I am just so glad with the amount of different storylines we're getting throughout this show. I think there is something for a lot of people to connect with and a lot of representation. Like, we haven't gotten to see in this way very often. And like the respect that certain things have been like treated with. And I am very excited with what Ashley told me, with the fact that there is going to be additional trans characters in this future season. And I so far have really loved the handling of Elle's character, and I'm so excited for more, because for me personally, I have seen enough traumatic trans coming out for maybe my whole life. And not that they're not important, but I want to see trans people existing, and I want to see, like, our transness is always going to be a part of us, and there are more things to talk about. So I'm really excited to see, because I trust these writers, what will be talked about that is something like trans people can relate with, but also people can see and relate to us in a way that, like, maybe that's something they hadn't thought about. And I think it really will open some dialogue that I'm really excited.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, we need people, we got to a point, I think, where people were like, we don't need coming out stories anymore. We're so tired of it. And it's like, no, we're always going to need those because up and coming queers are always going to need those stories. But we need a variety of stories. Just like we don't just need soft boys. We need all of them, and we are getting them. So I think that's really, really great.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think it's more that just there's an oversaturation of one type of story, and that's boring. And I think that Heartstopper is doing a really good job of like adding diversity to the types of queer stories that we get.
Yeah, and I feel like since many people here are quite bookish, as you said earlier, it's like if you look at the amount of fiction that's coming out with trans characters, there is a lot more of it right now, which I think is wonderful. But from what I've seen, it is primarily YA focused.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, we absolutely need these stories, and I want the coming outs. I want people discovering these connections. I just want them to see that there is life after coming out, and there is a love story for Elle, and there is like friendships and bonding, and her being able to relate with other people. That like, I'm so glad that it wasn't. There was no flashback to when she was at Trom. Like we didn't have to go through any of that. At no point did we know any other name. Like we didn't need to know that, and I'm really glad with how they've been focusing on telling her story.
Yeah, it was very natural,
and there was no like learning curve with her friends. Like at no point did we see like her core trio. There was no sort of like her having to educate them. It's like they were on board. They supported their friend. They were talking about the teacher being transphobic and just 100% on her side. And I like that. We don't need that unneeded drama in that.
Are you guys more of a Nick or a Charlie? I feel like, yeah, if you had to, who do you relate to more, or who if you're like, that's me?
This is something that I have thought a lot about.
I mean, I have an answer to this question because I'm Charlie and my husband is Nick.
Yeah, that's an accurate assessment.
Ashley has met.
My husband's name is Nick, but I'm the Nick, and he is the Charlie.
Nice. I am a blend of the two, for sure. I have not been able to pinpoint one way or the other, and it's like, because I really relate to, like, Charlie's mental health struggles and his anxiety and, like, the eating disorder stuff and all of that. But I also just relate to, like, Nick's personality and obviously his queer experience a little more as someone who is bisexual and not gay. So, like, that part of it comes in. But then, like, even sometimes Nick's anxiety about stuff, I'm like, oh my God, that is me right there. So, like, I don't know. I think I'm a blend of the two of them.
Yeah.
I feel like I see a lot of myself in a lot of the characters. Cause like, yeah, I like, if we're like, are you a Nick or a Charlie? I'm definitely a Charlie. But I see a lot of myself in Darcy, and I see a lot of my teenage self in Imogen, and I see a lot of myself in Tara. And so it's like, there's like so many different things that I relate to, but yeah,
right.
I'm a Charlie.
I mean, to be fair, this question is like, who's the man and who's the woman? And neither. I mean,
like, why are we thinking in a binary on this podcast?
Right, exactly. Like, I did it, but at least I'm owning up to
it. I'm just messing.
So what's funny is I think my response was going to be the non-binary response, because my response was literally going to be, I think I'm the Darcy.
Oh, totally fair.
Because I think that is who I relate to most, and like partially from my upbringing being a 15-year-old lesbian in an all-girls school once, but also just the way Darcy interacts with like the world, and she's so loving, but like filter-wise does not always communicate the way that she wants to, but like she's like down for anything, and I love it. And I do think that part of me, like, sometimes to my detriment, like even her at the rugby game when she's like, I'm here to connect with the local game.
I love that for you.
So good.
Darcy, you're saying what I'm thinking, and I love you for it.
I love that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Speaking of the word Darcy and non-binary being in the same sentence, Kizzy is non-binary, the actor. Mm-hmm. And I believe, I'd have to double check, but I believe Alice has said that she's open to kind of exploring like some like non-binary identity with Darcy in the future, which I think would be super cool. Mm-hmm. And then also, Ashley, I was just thinking that shot in the teaser, what if it plays in with maybe Darcy trying to figure shit out with her gender identity?
That would be cool.
That would be that. I mean, it would destroy me because I'm not excited for Darcy to be upset at all. But yeah. I would rather that be what's going on in that scene instead of Tara and Darcy being in an argument.
Yeah, and I've been wondering if they were going to play with Darcy's pronouns and stuff, just because they do have the freedom to really do whatever they want with that character, and just out of like just respect for Kizzy, and you know, every actor has brought a little piece of themselves into this already, and like that would be such a cool addition to all the new developments, was to get to tell that story through Darcy.
Yeah, totally. That would be so awesome.
Mm-hmm. I really hope that is how that goes. And that is something where, like, I want to see more of that. And again, with that, I'm not done with coming out stories. Like, I would love to see Darcy exploring things, and, like, having that support system, I think, is so important. And seeing this queer central friend group going through this, because I think we do normally see that, or we used to. It's, I think, getting a little better, but that, like, the one queer person or the one gay person, then seeing all their straight friends react to everything, but it's like having this like queer family and just having someone have another step in their journey, I think would be a really beautiful way to expand on it. And this would be the show that I feel like they would honor that, just like with Elliot Page and Umbrella Academy, and writing that into the story, I think, only makes it richer.
And I'm really excited about the possibility of that, because I feel like we haven't really had a lot of media where it's like, here is a queer character who is discovering and like kind of coming to a new part of their identity, or another part of their identity, and like grappling with that, because that can be really challenging in and of itself, of like, oh, well, I thought, you know, I was like, I understood myself as one thing, and now I'm figuring out how this other piece of the puzzle fits into it. And I feel like we haven't had a lot of stories like that. And as, you know, something that I've been grappling with in my own ways, it would be really exciting to see them navigate that.
Yeah, that intersectionality.
Yeah.
Okay, and now we have something a little special, because due to 2 out of the 3 of us moving recently, schedules have been a little crazy. So we are back today with Nicolette to hear Nicolette's Comic Corner for Chapter 3.
Hello. It's so good to be back. And yes, I did move, and it's fantastic. I can now call myself a cat lesbian. It's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so Chapter 3, more swearing. I can never get enough of all the swearing that's going on, and the punching of Harry, whose fucking twat face, cartoon face continues to piss me off, because my opinion still stands about how cartoon Harry just looks much more like a smug little douchebag. So when, like, in the part where they're at the cinema and like the illustration like breaks because Nick broke and he just punches him, I'm like, it felt that much more relieving. But let's be real here. This entire chapter is pretty much the majority of Heartstopper season 1. It's insanely long. One thing that I definitely did appreciate about the show, going back to that, was that it was a queer show, but like the main character ended up being bisexual, and that was okay, because you don't really see that a lot in queer media, or you haven't in the past. So it was really nice to see that. So it was really nice to have like basically this entire chapter be Nick sort of figuring it out and really like starting to like vocalize how he feels, and not just like his labels, but like him saying, I have a proper full-on gay crisis. That's huge. And we can't like not have that. And I also wanted to mention like I love that the show kept a lot of, or that the comics have a lot of my favorite quotes from the show, like one, proper full-on gay crisis, but two, when Charlie is talking about how it's always been boys, I always think about that line. It's very just like seamless in my mind, and very just like straightforward without it being like too crazy. It's just like, it's always been boys. And I didn't just wake up one day and say, well, guess I'm gay now. Like, you know, it's very cool. And I really like how the way Alice Oseman writes out the dialogue for all of the characters, it's like partially just like, yes, conversational, but also a part of it is educational. So when Charlie says to Nick, hey, like, you know, maybe you're bisexual, but you don't have to be, because, you know, there's so many different things. Maybe, but it's maybe not. But then it just ends up clicking coincidentally for Nick. Like, it didn't have to. Yeah. There are like polysexual, lots of polysexual orientations. There's not just, you know, one or the other. Right. So it is true. It's just convenient that bisexual did end up clicking for Nick. And I'm so happy it did, because we don't really get to see that a lot. How much bi media is actually out there that's like this? Because I don't even know.
Like this? Like none?
Exactly. Exactly.
If any listeners know comparable bisexual representation in media, please DM it to us or email it to us. Share it.
I'm curious, because this is like the first time that I've seen it, and I think even as like a queer one, like as a lesbian, that this is like amazing. Like, because quite frankly, side note, I do think that bisexuals could take over the world. You guys are the majority. You guys could take over the world. So I'm surprised that there's not more media out that's just like bi media.
Yeah.
And we also get to meet Elle in this very long chapter, finally. And I really like the way Alice Oseman sort of writes that too. It's not like, oh, like, you know, this is another one of my friends. Like, you know, Nick recognizes her. And before he has anything to say about it, Charlie will like cut him off and say, oh, actually, like, you know, this is her name now. We're not going to even think about what her name was, like what her dead name is. This is who she is. This is where she goes to school. And like, he's totally cool with it. And, you know, Elle knows him too. So like, they were talking about like catching up, and it's just very wholesome, and I really like it. And of course, I really like Aled, and the whole bowling scene, the whole birthday scene is really cute. I really love that they kept like, you're being sad on my birthday, but technically his birthday isn't until Tuesday.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have the grounds, but you know, so and I love, it's very long and it's very cute. And oh crap. You know what I totally forgot to say, and I feel like I should have said this before. His name is escaping me. The Oliver, right? When I was reading this for the first time on the train, I got to the part where they were kissing in the beginning of the chapter. And Oliver walks in and is like, oh my God, Nick, oh my God. And goes, why were you guys kissing? It's like, we weren't kissing. It's like, well, then why were your lips together? And the audible sound I made on the train, just like, oh.
I love that little scene. And it's like, if they should be worried about anyone letting it slip, obviously it's the like 6-year-old.
Yeah.
But they don't sweat it at all. They're just like, it's going to be our secret, okay? And let it go.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, cool. Like, okay. No 6-year-old would ever. I mean, Oliver is pretty special. He does have a pretty solid gaydar, and he didn't say anything to anyone about it. So that's pretty it's pretty solid.
I feel like him and Tori definitely had some conversations.
Well, you know, I feel like the conversations between siblings in that aspect don't like really count.
Definitely not.
Because it's like it never like leaves the room.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's the real reason why he never let it slip. Tori was like, I will cut you.
As an older sister. Yeah. And another really good thing about this chapter is, unlike the show, there's no potential breakup.
Yeah.
He gets into a fight and it's like, oh shit, you got into a fight? Okay, we're gonna go on a date. Like, sweet.
Yeah.
It's just happy. It's just like, it happened. He sucks. He's a twat. Yes, he is a fucking twat. And we're gonna go on a date and then we're gonna talk about you coming out and it's gonna be great.
Yeah. How did you feel about the coming out panels?
I like them because it was honest.
Mm-hmm.
I like that it was it was very similar to the show. I could hear it when I was reading it.
Yeah.
But it was very real and it was very honest. I mean, everyone, when they come out to their parents, is very different. When I came out to my parents, I did not cry, or I tried not to cry. But, like, it's very much like the preparation that it could go terribly. And of course, Nick's mom is not going to, like, you know, fuck up. She's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very honest in the way that, like, you know, they were speaking about it and he really felt like he was being able to open up to his mom. I mean, they already have a really solid relationship, so that's not like a huge deal. But the way that she was also sort of like, no, I kind of figured, but I wasn't totally sure.
Right.
But I appreciate that you told me, and I'm sorry if you felt like you couldn't. Because, like, I think that's best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Is, like, having a parent say, like, I'm sorry if you felt like that you couldn't tell me.
Right.
I'm sorry if I did something that made you feel that way. Mm-hmm. Rather than, like, I don't know what the alternative would be, but it would be really bad.
Yeah. So did you have a favorite quote or a favorite panel or both?
You know what I really like? I really like when Nick is coming out to Tara.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like talking about, you know, what happened when she and Darcy came out, and Darcy comes up behind her and there's like that weird, like,
Thwarp.
Like the face that Darcy's making. Yeah. And she's like, I hate you. No, you don't.
That's a good choice.
Because also that would confirm, like, you know, that is something I would do to my girlfriend, is absolutely just be like,
oh, I love to scare people. It's one of my favorite things. All right. Did you have a favorite quote?
Calling Harry a twat is pretty fucking far up on that list. I'm sorry. I just, like, can't. I can't with that dude.
I love that.
I can't with his smug little cartoon face. I want to punch him.
I love that that's your favorite quote.
I'm not going to stop talking about it.
Please don't. No one's mad about it.
I can't.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving us all of your thoughts. And now you can go turn your air conditioning back on.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Do y'all want to tell us like where we can find you online if people want to follow you?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, all the things at TroyFinn2, where I talk about books, queer things, maybe a little Batman, and you can hit me up for any book recommendations. And you can find my podcast, Gotham Outsiders, at Gotham Outsiders, mainly on Twitter, but we're around. Check us out. We talk about queer stuff and Batman and DC Comics.
Nice.
And so I am working on being more social media literate other than on Facebook. that is a journey for me. So on Twitter, I am Queer Aquaman, which I was actually knighted by one of mine and TJ's other friends, Chris, many years ago, and that will be my handle till the end of time. So thank you, Chris. We love you. And I also I'm starting to do silly TikToks sometimes when I'm bored, and that's Dear Avery 5, and that's just mostly talking about transness, books, and yarn, mostly.
So that just about wraps us up for this episode. And of course, this is a bi-weekly podcast by two bisexuals, and we will be back in 2 weeks for another Rewind episode.
If you want to follow us online, we are at Why Are We Cast on all platforms. And if you like this episode, please consider rating and reviewing us.
And until next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.